Alrighty, so you probably clicked on the video because you want to create your own models in Blender, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to start with where to download Blender. We're going to go through kind of basic navigation of Blender, how to use the different tools and shortcuts as well, and speed up your modeling a lot quicker as well. And then after we create an STL through Blender, we're going to put it in Bamboo Slicer program. Slicer is basically a software that creates your STL and turns it into some code for your printer to print the object. So where we're going to start is downloading Blender. You just search up Blender on the internet. It'll throw you into this kind of screen. You just go to download, click download Blender. If a different version is applicable to you, definitely change it. If you got a MacBook or you use Linux, switch it there and then just hit download Blender. It'll walk you through the steps on how to download it. Super easy. You can also download it through Steam. If you play video games, you know what that is. I personally use Steam because it automatically updates and it keeps track of your hours you've clocked in Blender, so I kind of like it in that regard. But anyway, once you've finished downloading it, you're going to see this screen right here with our camera, our wonderful cube, and a light. And you can also change, move, switch these screens to anything you want. Bunch of stuff that we're not going to need today. But what we will need is our properties tab here, which is what this is, and then our hierarchy, which shows us what kind of objects we have in the scene. We should only have one for this tutorial. I don't see why we'd have more, but we've got our object, which is this cube. We don't really need a light or a camera, so I'm actually going to get rid of those. Not that it matters at all, but we won't need it for this. Maybe it'll be less confusing. We actually don't need the cube either because we're going to start with something else. So now we're nice and empty. We got nothing in our scene. What I am going to do really quick, a really good piece of advice for modeling is having a reference photo, because the way things are in your head are sometimes different than real life. So pull up image editor, which we're just going to use as like a reference area. And I'm just going to throw it right here. You can put it anywhere you want. I mean, you could throw it down here if you wanted. You can split these screens up a whole bunch of different ways. To do that, you'll just move over these little seams between the windows, right click, and you can split or join areas, swap areas. So I can move this screen here, it's like a viewport, into this area, which would be really stupid, but you could. Same with all these. I'm using image editor to put our reference here. So once you have image editor on one of these screens, or maybe you split this in half like this, maybe you want it right here. That's cool too. You can put it wherever you want, and you'll just change it up there with these. So I'm actually gonna merge these now. What I am gonna do is download a picture of a rook. I've got one saved here from the internet. Anything will do. Or if you want to make a different chess piece, that's totally cool too. You can do whatever you want. The bottom is pretty much the same except until you get to the top. So that's completely up to you. Maybe challenge yourself towards the end and make something different. But I'm going to download this picture and save it somewhere I don't lose it, and then throw it onto that little screen I just created. Okay, so I've got it saved to my desktop. Just going to double click it there. It's going to throw the photo of that wonderful rook up here. So this is what we need to make. This is our goal here. First of all, navigating through this wonderful viewport here, middle mouse button will kind of rotate your screen around wherever your center point is. Right now it's just the origin, which is where the X and Y and Z axis intersect, which is right here, and that's where our little cursor is. You can actually move this cursor. I'll show you why it's important later, probably. By holding shift and right clicking, you can move it around. It proves pretty helpful later for doing some other things, but you can also reset it too by holding shift S and do cursor to world origin, and it'll put it back there. Also, your origin, wherever you put that is where your object that you want to put in the world is going to start. So if I move it here, it'll go there, but I'm going to put it in the origin right here. So Shift A is how we put things into our viewport. That is a shortcut. This is where it comes from, but it doesn't matter. It's way quicker. Just hit Shift A, and we're actually going to put a circle in our scene, and then we're going to get a wonderful circle that pops up here. So there's actually a lot of ways to model this. I'm just going to do it the first way that comes to mind. That's the cool thing about Blender, because it's you're modeling with vertices, edges, and faces. I mean, there's just a lot of ways to do it with all these different modifiers you can use too. I can show you probably 3 or 4 different ways to do this, but again, I'm just gonna show you the one that comes to mind. It's just putting a circle down. So 1 on your keyboard is gonna allow you to select vertices. That's what these are right here, and then holding left click is what I'm doing right now to kind of box select a bunch of them. 2 on your keyboard is edge select. That's going to let you select edges on your object. And then 3 is face select, which we don't actually have any faces right now because this is just a line of dots and they're connected to each other. So object and edit mode. So object mode allows you to select bigger objects that you have in your scene. So if I, for example, have like 2, so now I got there's an actual face right there. So if you hit 3, you can actually select that. But I created another object here, so now while I'm in object mode, I can select either one separately. If I press tab on the object I have selected, it goes into edit mode. So now I'm editing the object that I selected, and I can go into the vertices and change what I want. And it's not going to let you do that to one you don't have selected. So now I'm just messing with this one. You press tab, puts you back in object mode, and you can select a different object, edit whatever you want, and there you are. So object mode is also how you delete whole objects. So while I'm in object mode, I can just left click what I want to delete, press delete on my keyboard, or you can actually do that from up here, which is what I was messing with earlier. You can hit right click and then hit delete, or you can hit X on it, or hit the delete key on it from up here. You can do it any of those ways. But I'm going to reset my cursor here. So we're just, all we have right now is a bunch of vertices that are connected with edges, which is perfect. It's exactly what we want. So what we're going to do now is actually hit F while we have this whole object selected. What you can do is press A while you're in edit mode, and it'll select all the vertices in your object, or edges if you're in edge mode, or faces if you're in face mode. But anyway, hit A, and then we're going to press F, which is going to fill in all of our faces. And we're going to have one giant face here. It's nice and ugly. But anyway, pressing E on your keyboard is actually going to extrude the object, and it'll go along its normals, which is basically the way it's facing. And that was exactly up. You can also move objects by clicking on face, edge, or vertice separately. By clicking G on your keyboard, you're probably going to be using the G key the most. But that lets you move different vertices and whatnot. So now, if I wanted to move this a certain direction, I can also hit G and then an axis, so X, Y, or Z. X-axis is going to move it along the X only. Same with Y here, and then as well as Z. And that might be helpful for us here. So there's that. Now, another cool trick is insetting faces. So with a face selected, I can press I on my keyboard, and it's going to do that. So that's insetting right there. And then I'm going to extrude by clicking E again. It's going to automatically go up. And now I've kind of got a very rough shape of the base of my rook here. So that's exactly what I want. Now I'm noticing that the second bubbly portion here of this rook kind of flares out a little bit. So the way I'm going to tackle that, I'm actually going to move this up just a little bit. I'm going to hit Control R on my keyboard. I'm still in edit mode, by the way. I'm going to stay in edit mode for a good duration here. But I'm going to click Control R, and that's going to do something called a loop cut. I'm going to create more and more cuts, and the top left of your screen is going to show you how many cuts that you're making with your scroll wheel, and that's right here. So that's 16 cuts. I don't want to go too crazy because, again, I don't want a bunch of detail yet, as we're just getting the shape of this thing down. So I'm going to do 5. What I want to do now is select this middle edge loop right here to select the whole thing without clicking all of them individually. You can hit Alt, left click it, and it'll select the entire loop all the way around. If you need to add something to your selection ever, you can just hold Shift, and it'll add whatever edge you clicked on. But yeah, we'll just do that there. You can also do this with vertices, and in our case, I don't want to use faces, but you could do it with faces also. And I'm holding Alt yet again to select like a whole loop. So I'm gonna select this middle edge loop here with Alt left click, and then This magical button right here is proportional editing. So what this does is it moves everything around the object or vertices, edges, or faces you have selected proportionally. You can actually change the cutoff and how it works to how sharp it is and whatnot. We don't need to mess with that. We're just going to do smooth. Keep it simple like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to use something called scaling. That's hitting S on your keyboard, and what it's going to do is it's going to scale everything just out, basically. Well, in or out, depending on where your cursor is. And with proportional editing, what that's going to do is kind of give us like a little bulge, which is what we want, because that's what this looks like. So I'm going to call that good enough, and that kind of gives us our shape that we're looking for. I'm also seeing at the bottom here is a little bit rounded on the bottom. So to match that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this edge loop right here, which I did with clicking 2 on my keyboard. So I'm selecting edges, not vertices or faces. I'm going to hold Alt and then left click that edge right there. If you hit Control B, that's going to do something called a bevel. One segment bevel is technically called a chamfer, but yeah, there's if you scroll with your scroll wheel yet again, just like we did up here with our second section here, it's going to create more segments. And I'm just going to do 5 again because that's what I did earlier. And I'm going to kind of give us a nice little round edge just like that. So now we've got the base of our rook just like that. And I just realized I don't like the distance of like where our curve starts. This is a little too tall. So there's 2 ways to fix this. I can move the whole model downwards and squish it on top of this bottom face, or I can just be lazy and click 3 to move this face and hit GZ, so I'm moving on the Z axis, and I'm just going to move it up just like that. And now we've got the shape we want. I actually want it down a little bit lower because I didn't like that. But there we go. So now our object is floating. It doesn't matter, but the OCD me is going to want to fix that. So I'm going to show you how to get it level with our base plane. If you hit Shift, we need to select this face right here. We're going to hit Shift S, cursor to selected, and that's going to put our cursor right in the middle of that circle, which is a nice flat object. So it's going to be, we're not going to have any distance on the Z-axis, which is perfect for us. Now that our cursor is there right at the bottom of our object, we're going to set the origin to our cursor. So now the origin of our object is the base of it, which is important because if I want to scale the whole thing, it's going to scale right on the bottom. It's not going to move up or down. Let me show you what happens if you had your origin where it's supposed to be, which is the origin, it's going to shrink it down, and it'll end up getting off of our floor, which doesn't really matter. But if you're doing things, I want to say the right way, but there's really no right way to do any of this. The OCD way, I guess. That's just how I'm going to call it for now. That's how you do that. So again, I'm going to go cursor to selected on my bottom face. Object mode here, set origin to 3D cursor, and now our cursor set to where we want it to. Now, if I want this object put directly center again, I'm going to hit this, our little base here in object mode. I'm going to hit Shift S, and I'm going to go selection to cursor, or excuse me, we need to reset our cursor to world origin first, so it's set down there, and then we can do this with the Shift S, selection to cursor, and it's going to put it right back to the center point of our wonderful viewport. Anyway, something else we do need to do is make sure that the scale of our object is where it's supposed to be and realistic with what we're printing. That's definitely important with 3D printing, not so much rendering. But I looked up the size of a rook piece, and it says height 5.5 centimeters, and the base should be between 2.2 and 2.75. For simplicity, I'm just going to do 2.5 centimeters. So the way we'd go about doing that is go to our units in this tab right here. It's called scene. We'll go under the units here, metric, because I'm using centimeters, and then I want to set my length to centimeters. Yeah, we'll do centimeters. And then we're also going to download a tool which is kind of built in with Blender, and there's tons of these. It's awesome, and they're all free too, which is also great. So you just go to edit up here at the top left, you go to preferences, click on the add-ons here, search add-ons. I'm going to type in measure it, and then I'm going to go down here and check that, and you're good to go just like that. So now hitting N on your keyboard is going to pop up these little ribbons here with some different tools. All we need is the view portion right here, because that's going to have our new measure it tools. We're going to click down on this. We're going to hit show so that the things we're measuring now are actually where we want them to be. And I'm going to select, I'm going to go to object mode, select our rook again. I'm going to click tab to go into edit mode, and then 1 for vertex select. Click both. I'm going to click my 2 furthest points on the base of my rook, because that's what I want to measure right now. And then I'm going to hit segment. So now we're at 1.7 meters. So that's a giant chess piece. We're going to change this to centimeters, and we're going to scale this down. So to do that, we're going to hit S while we're in object mode, and it's going to scale down nicely. And we're going to go to 2.5 centimeters, because that's what we want our base to be. So 2.5, just like that. Now we've got our piece to scale right here, and I'm going to unshow this, hit hide so that it's not bothering us while we're finishing it up here. Also, now is probably a good time to save your project if you haven't already. Hit Control S, it'll ask you for where you want to save it. Go ahead and do that. I'm just going to do untitled on my desktop for now. Perfect. And then hit Control S to save. You can also go up here, File, and then save it from there as well. Definitely do that often. Make that a habit, because nobody wants to lose hours of work into thin air for no reason. So definitely do that. But anyway, we've got our shape here. We want to keep on building up from the top here. We're going to create this little ring here next. So to do that, first I want to scale this down, because it's not what I want it to look like. But now it is. We're going to extrude again. It's going to have it locked to the Z-axis. We're going to go up, and then I'm going to extrude once more, and this is where a ring's going to be. So the easiest way I think to do this is we're going to hit 3, which is face select, alt click again to create or select that ring around our faces around here. We're going to hit E for extrude. We're going to right click. So there's actually 2 faces in here right now. Don't click anything else except Alt S, and that's actually going to scale the faces that you just created along their normals, which is basically the way they're facing is what that means. So now we have a block out for that ring now, basically. And what I want to do is kind of round out the edges, because it is like there too. And to do that, I'm just going to hit Alt click again while I'm in edge mode, so I can click the edges, and then I'm going to hit Shift, Alt, left click on the edge up here as well, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit Control B with, I'll just do 5 segments again, because why not? And now we've got that nice little ring around our whatever that is. So here's what we're looking like. We got a good idea of the shape and what it looks like. It looks like the kind of bulge on this comes out further than the base, or very close to it. Ours doesn't do that. I mean, you can do that if you want, but I don't care that much. I'm going to leave it just like this. And another side note, something to keep in mind while if you're printing these, which is kind of what this is about. If you're printing this, you don't want overhangs that are flat and stick out very far by themselves, because the printer has to create, you know, filament in over nothing, and that's difficult to do, and it can be ugly. So we want to avoid that as much as possible, or you're going to have to use supports. So in order to save that, you can actually have overhangs that are slanted, like, you know, 20, 30 degrees maybe. You get anything over that, and it starts to get iffy. So 90-degree overhangs like this are definitely iffy. We can save that by selecting that edge, and we can actually chamfer this, which is it's just a one face, one section, one segment bevel, and that should be relatively good. I mean, we can do more too and go crazy and probably go there, but I'm gonna leave it. I might show supports later with that. We'll see. But anyway, let's keep building up here. I I don't know where I am with height, and one way to actually determine that, check this out. I'm going to use a cube as like a measuring block here. So what I want to do is, I hit Shift A by the way to select another mesh. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this, and here in item I'm going to change the dimensions because I want it 5.5 centimeters tall, because that's official size apparently, and then we'll just make the X and Z dimensions 2 because it doesn't matter. So same thing with the origin that I started there with the rook. I'm going to do here. I'm going to hit cursor to selected, set my origin to that cursor, so now it's the origin of this object is the bottom of it, and then I'm going to go ahead and set it to, I'm going to move this object to the, excuse me, I need to go cursor to world origin first, and then I'm going to go selection to cursor, which is right here, and then I'm going to move this on either a G, or excuse me, X or Y axis by pressing G, then clicking X or Y. And that is our height. So this is 5.5 centimeters. This is how tall our rook should be. So just to kind of keep that in mind while we're modeling. I'm going to create this next segment now. So to do that, I'm just going to click the face that we got on top, hit E. We're going to go up just like that. This kind of tapers in a little bit, so in order to fix that, I'm just going to go ahead and press S, taper it in till it looks like it's where I want it. That's perfect. It looks like this kind of comes up and rounds out just a little bit, so I'm going to extrude up yet again. I'm going to go ahead and create, say, 3 edge loops. I'm going to select that edge. I'm going to use proportional editing again, scale it out a little bit, and what happened just now was my cursor or my scaling was way out, so you can actually change the size of this with your middle mouse button or your scroll wheel, excuse me, and it'll get to a size that we want better. So that is just about perfect, I think. I'm going to skip some of the detail in here because I don't want it, and that's the joy of modeling your own stuff. If you don't want it, you don't have to put it in there. I'm going to extrude that up just a little bit, and then I'm going to do that just again, and I'm going to create the top of this here now. So I'm going to do that once more. I'm going to create kind of like this cylinder area here. To do that, we're going to select these faces again, E, right click, Alt S, that's going to extrude our normals. And now what I just did is I'm extruding, or I'm scaling with proportional editing on right now, so we don't want that. I'm going to turn that off first. Alt S, do that again, and now we've kind of got our little top there. So this is perfect, it's exactly what we want. I'm going to scale the inside of this because I'm actually going to create our, I don't know what these are called. Whatever these things are called. They look like teeth almost. They're definitely not, but that's those things. So we'll work on those next. Actually, what I want to do really quick just to clean this up and make it easier to print to is actually chamfer this so that our printer's not freaking out. And that looks wonderful. So now, what I just did was I hit 7 on my number pad. If you don't have one, that sucks. You can't do this, but it's an orthographic view of the top down. This is going to be super helpful for lining stuff up for what we're going to do right now. There's another way to do this. All you have to do is click View while you have your object selected that you want to focus on. Go ahead and go to View, and then we'll go Viewport Top right here, and that'll show you a top-down view. Go back to Edit Mode, 5 of these faces, gap of 2. And see if that works. That works perfect. Okay, so that's what we want. We're going to extrude these up now, and then now we have, I want a few more segments than that. That doesn't, it doesn't look quite right. So I'm going to actually, I'm going to use some more segments. So we're going to do, we can't do 4. We'll do 4 and we'll skip 3. Let's see if that works. I could probably be doing the math to this, but that's too much work. Let's try 4 and skip 4. Oh, well, that doesn't fix our problem at all. It's the same. It's the same deal we just had. Okay. Well, that would be ideal. And if you like the way this looks, then by all means do that. I'm actually going to do something a little bit different. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a circle here on top of this. So all I did was selected the middle face here, that circle, and hit cursor to selected. So our new circle that we're going to create is going to fit right on top of it if I hit Shift A while in edit mode. So it's the object I'm creating is part of this object, if that makes sense. So let me explain this, I guess. These are two separate objects. You can tell because they're different here. I'm going to actually rename this to Rook. You just double click the object you want to rename on your hierarchy and it'll rename it. So there's our Rook now. We got our cube, which is kind of our measuring stick for now. But anyway, if you create an object while you have an object selected in edit mode, you're going to kind of link them together in a way. So these two now will stick together because this object I just created is part of this one while I had it in edit mode. So I don't actually want to create a circle just like that quite yet. Also, what I hit is L. That selects all linked vertices together when you click L. So I want to delete this. I'm going to hit X and then hit delete vertices there. So I want a new circle, but what I want to do is I want to change how many vertices it has. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it to 40. Oop. So now I got a circle with 40 vertices. I'm going to scale it down till we're lined up with our other ones. Perfect. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit E for extrude, Alt S. Oh, that's not going to work. So I'm actually going to hit S, Shift Z, which is going to scale on every axis except Z, which is exactly what we want. And that's a little bit distracting. So I'm actually going to hide this bottom section by hitting L again. I'm going to hit H. So now we're not being distracted by those overlapping vertices, and we can just see what we need. But anyway, let's get this working now. I think 5 will work now. That's too many. That's too many. So 5, 5. This is what, 6? Yeah, now it's 5. There we go. Okay. So we got 5 of our little faces there, and I'm just going to go ahead and extrude that up. That's a little bit better. So I like that much better. We're going to use that, and I think these like tower segments are a little bit too thick, so I'm going to make them a little bit skinnier. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go ahead and hit Alt S on all my edges on this kind of inside curvature area. I'm going to hit Shift Alt Z again, so I scale on every axis except the Z, and that's going to give us a perfect effect there with what we want. I want this a little bit thicker, so I'm going to do that. So perfect. Now I'm liking this this top portion a little bit better, so that's great. And we are, if I move this measuring stick that we got here, we're just about 5.5, which is great. So that is what we need. I'm going to go ahead, in order to get it all the way up there, I'm going to move probably this section. It's supposed to be right up at that line, so that'll work right there. And I'm going, oop. The reason you can't see it anymore is because it's hidden. If you hit Alt H, it'll unhide everything. That's also dependent on whether or not you're in object or edit mode, so keep that in mind. You can hide things in object mode and they will disappear regardless if you're in object or edit mode. If you hit Alt H, it'll get rid of that or undo that. If you're in edit mode and you hide something, it'll only be hidden in edit mode. Once you go back to object mode, it'll reappear. So again, if you see something missing it's not supposed to be, just hit Alt H. Unless you deleted something, then you'll need some Alt Z's, but regardless. So now we've got our wonderful shape here. In order to measure from the top and bottom, Well, that's as long as our wonderful cube here lines up, that's how it's gonna work. And I mean, if you're hundredths of a millimeter off, the printer tolerances are not that accurate, so it will not matter unless you got some kind of crazy printer. So we've got our dimensions good. We know that because if we go to view and show our width of our piece, we're 2.5 centimeters, and we know this is, if I just measure this really quick, get the vertices here, segment, we're at 5.5, which is what we want, and our rook is just about there, so we're perfect. I'm going to delete this cube because we don't need it anymore. I'm going to hide those measurements again, those are annoying. Now we've got our rook. So this is what we want to print. What I'm going to do to clean up all these faces, because you'll be able to see these faces in the print, ask me how I know. We're actually going to use something called a subdivision surface modifier. I'm actually going to get rid of this because we're done modeling here. So I'm going to hit join up. That's going to merge those two together. In the modifiers tab, what I want to do is hit, I'm going to search for subdivision surface. Now, once you hit this, your model's going to go all crazy looking. It's going to look a little soft. That's what I meant. Yep, it looks pretty bad. That's not what we want. To fix that, what we're going to do, well, first of all, I hit the subdivisions up to 2 because it's a little bit better for what we want. What you can do, if there's some objects, so these aren't, the reason this looks like this is because these two aren't actually connected. So the subdivision surface, with the way we created the vertices up here, is going to create kind of like an artifact up here, but it's alright. To fix that, just hit Shift E on the faces up here, basically the ones that are causing us problems, and that's going to create a hard edge for our subdivision to know that it basically doesn't need to be all soft and squishy. So we're also going to do that on each face that we need to be, not faces but edges, that we need to be creased perfectly, basically. So to change the crease, what you'll hit is Shift E, which is I was just doing, and then if you hit 1 on your keypad, it'll make it perfectly flat. So we want to crease all our faces that we want nice and sharp, I guess. That's what I'd call it. So you're gonna have to go around, highlight all these, and crease them all. I would select the faces on these, it's a little bit easier. But anyway, I'm gonna crease all these in just a second. Oh, also don't accidentally crease the edges between this. It's gonna create some artifacts, ones that might have more not good implications in rendering. It's not going to be as noticeable while you're 3D printing, but just a good habit to keep, not to crease flat objects that we need to keep flat. So don't crease the faces, just crease the edges around the edges here. This face you can crease because all the edges are connected to something that doesn't matter. Also, if you want your model to look nice and pretty, you can just hit Shade Auto Smooth, and your model will look nice and smooth. Oh, this bottom looks like this because it doesn't have enough geometry. We can just fix that by insetting that bottom just a little bit. Now we got a nice clean model. I'll be right back. I'm going to go ahead and just finish creasing up everything that I want. If you guys want other things creased, like some of these sections, you can do that too. Completely up to you, free reign, everything. Make it go crazy. Yeah, I'll be back once I'm finished doing this. Okay. Now I'm all done with that. I've creased everything that I want creased. The rest of this is just fine the way it is. So perfect. We got our little rook piece. Yeah. Hopefully it's exactly the way you want it. Make sure you make any other changes that you might want. If you want to add something crazy on here, now would be your time. Alrighty, we're gonna go into the slicer software. I use Bamboos, and I have a P1S here at home, which is what I'm gonna be printing this guy off of. So what I'll do from here is select our object that we want to transfer. If you accidentally made yours 2 or something, join them together, or just make sure you select them both so that the object you want printed is highlighted. What you're going to do is you're going to go to File, Export, STL, because that's what we need in an STL file, Desktop, name it whatever you want to name it. Make sure you select Scene Unit and Selection Only, so that only the object that you just selected is exported in STL, and apply modifiers as well because we have a subdivision surface in there, so that'll be helpful. So go ahead and export STL. Now what you're going to do is open that, so wherever it just went to, you're going to open that, or I mean you can open your slicer software as well. This is Bamboo's obviously. So you'll go to import these crazy things right here. We just made an STL, so that's what we're going to be importing. Go ahead and import it. Your software is going to say object too small. I don't know why it always pops up for me, even though everything comes in or like gets imported perfectly to scale and everything. Also, the way we modeled this top part was a little bit sloppy the way we put it together. So you can actually hit this button down here to manifold your edges. Manifold edges are just ones that have an opening in them. Blender does have an add-on called 3D Print, where you can actually clean up and make your object manifold, but it does crazy things like that, so I don't use it very much because of that. I actually think well, we can actually clean it up just like that. We could have done that in here. The only reason this kind of looks wonky is because I didn't crease these bottom edges in here. But yeah, in order to get to that, you can hide your subdivision surface so it's not bugging you. That's this little computer icon right here. Go ahead and crease your edges along the bottom here. And now that now it's manifold apparently, so we can go ahead and hit check here. Yeah, we got no non-manifold edges, so we would be good exporting this in here. You wouldn't actually get that error. I've personally found out that the Bamboo slicer ends up just fixing them way easier anyway, so I prefer just having the non-manifold edges fixed by Bamboo itself. I think it's just way easier. So yeah, what you'll do is, I don't know if you've used this before or not, but you'll go ahead and hit preview. You'll slice your object. You can mess with the strength settings in here. This is kind of the biggest deal. I would also use the gyroid infill for objects that you want strength in other directions than just kind of compression straight up and down. Gyroid is definitely a go-to for that. I'm going to go ahead and make this infill density way less because I don't need this thing to be strong at all. So I'm going to go ahead and just do that. Perfect. So it's a little over 4.8 grams. The white mark is your seam. Every printer does it. It's kind of where your printer stops and goes to the next level. So that's what the deal is with that. I don't see any crazy overhangs, so this should probably work. If you do have any crazy flat overhangs that don't kind of steadily curve up, you'll need to go to support here and hit enable support. I find Tree Auto works the best and it does its job. And then the slicer will automatically create where supports need to be placed. I'm going to say I don't need it. I don't think this overhang is too crazy. I'm going to enable it just in case. And then just be cautious, the surfaces that your supports create kind of make things a little bit messy, but it is what it is. And this is going to be a 30-minute print. Awesome. And it shows you your cost as well through Wonderful Bamboo. But anyway, so we'll just go ahead and hit print plate right here. Make sure you have the printer that you want printing selected, the filament that you want selected. I've got an AMS, so it shows me a couple here. Yours or I don't know, whatever you use. You'll either have an extension or you'll have an AMS, or 4 of them. You can actually have 4 connected to one printer, and you'll get and hit send, and now it's going to print just like that. Easy peasy. And we'll just wait for it to come out. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Well, this guy's downloading and the bed's getting heated up right now. That is it. We'll just wait for this guy to come out. And yeah, you just made your own model in Blender, easy peasy.